Davis was sentenced to death in 1996 for ordering a hitman to kill Kim Groves. Groves was a 32-year-old mother of three who filed a brutality complaint against Davis with the NOPD's Internal Affairs Division. Davis was alerted to the complaint by another officer and enlisted Paul Cool Hardy to kill Groves outside of her lower 9th Ward home. Davis was later implicated in an FBI investigation that linked Davis and Hardy to Groves' murder. In a statement to WWL Louisiana, Kim Groves' son Corey said, "My family has been living with the nightmare of Len Davis for over 30 years. I've always wanted him to spend the rest of his life in prison and have to wake up every morning and think about what he did when he took our mother from us." Now, in total, Biden commuted 37 of 40 prisoners. Biden said he condemns these murderers and grieves for the victims, but he is convinced that the death penalty must stop on the federal level. Mike.
Mentioned earlier, Len had been extorting protection money from drug dealers in the area. Two of these dealers were Paul Hardy and Damon Causey. The men would often do favors for Len in exchange for protection, and the last favor he was able to request was for them to kill Kim Groves. It was now around 5 o'clock on October 13th, and Len paged for Paul. Paul called Len, and they went over the plans to kill Kim. Paul was to be the designated shooter, while Len and Damon were tasked with cleaning up any evidence. They also planned what would happen after the murder. Len was supposed to meet Paul and Damon at the police station to view photos of homicide cases. Len and Damon met up. They drove around in Len's patrol car searching for Kim in the neighborhood. At around 7:30 that night, they picked Paul up and drove back to Kim's neighborhood and let Paul out so he could walk around and find her. Len then left the neighborhood again to take Paul home because they were having a hard time finding Kim. Len then drove around with his partner Samuel, but hours had gone by and still no Kim. Len ended up calling Paul complaining, but Paul reassured him that the job would get done. Finally, at around 10 o'clock p.m., Len and his partner spotted Kim near her home, so he immediately paged Paul. After calling Len back, Paul made his way to Kim's neighborhood. Samuel's shift was over, so by this time he left Len alone in the patrol car. At around 10:45, Kim was still not dead, so he called Paul to complain once again. He described what Kim was wearing and how she looked in detail. At 11 o'clock, Paul found Kim and fatally shot her. Len was unaware of the FBI being on his trail, so they quickly found out he was behind the murder of Kim Groves. The FBI also busted 9 other police officers employed with the NOPD as being corrupt officers, and they were relieved of their duties. In December 1994, the government filed a federal indictment against Len, Paul, and Damon. All 3 men were tried together in front of a jury. In July 1995, the government filed 2 notices of intent to seek the death penalty for Paul and Len. In August 1995, the men were charged with conspiracy to deprive Kim of her civil rights while acting under color of state law, depriving Kim of her civil rights by use of excessive force by shooting her with a firearm resulting in death, and willfully killing Kim to prevent her communications to a law enforcement officer regarding a possible federal crime. On April 26, 1996, Len was sentenced to death, Paul was also sentenced to death, and Damon was sentenced to life in prison after he rejected a plea deal that would have given him 6 to 9 years in prison. After Len was sentenced, he left the courtroom and refused to return. The Fifth Circuit reversed Len and Paul's death sentence when the conviction for witness tampering was overturned. After a new sentencing hearing, the new jury agreed with sentencing Len to death on October 27, 2006. Paul was also resentenced to death, but in 2011, his sentence was commuted to life when the judge found him to be mentally retarded. As of today, Len is currently on federal death row and is imprisoned at the U.S. Penitentiary Terre Haute in Indiana.